course, it is me, Scott. That's right, that guy that you occasionally stumble across here on YouTube. And we finally reached part 6 of this amazing tutorial, right? That's right. That's right. The Trick or Treat Studios, aka TOTS Halloween 2018 rehaul tutorial. That's right, the rehaul tutorial. Now, before I forget, I want to dedicate part 6 to a gentleman that I really owe the hair that I'm going to talk about in this video and show you as well. But I want to dedicate this to Mr. Rowland Kelly. Rowland Kelly, I think, is, and I'm just assuming at this point and guessing, is underrated as hell. Rowland Kelly has been rehauling. No. Rehaul is not the right word. I apologize. Rowland Kelly has been, he's been an independent artist who has done amazing work on some incredible masks that he's finished from basically a blank to, if you want some some incredible H1s or H2s, I highly suggest that you check out Rowland Kelly on Facebook or Instagram. And Rowland Kelly, if you're watching this video, please, in the comments section, if you are up to it, I'm sure you are, leave some more information on where people can find you other than those two. Or if that's just fine, then by all means, yes. You collectors out there, you fans of the Michael Myers, especially 1 and 2, I mean, as talented he is, I'm sure he could do much more than that. But if you're a fan of the 1 and 2 like myself, like that's your favorite, like mine, you owe it to yourself to check out his work, or maybe talk to him about, well, I think you know. So Rowland, thank you so much, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't know about what's in this box. Thank you so much. Now, before I get to what's in this box, let's get to this. Let's say you are finished with painting your mask. You're confident that you're done. Don't feel bad if you're still on the fence, but you're pretty confident that you're done. Like, yep, I'm ready to hair this. But before you do, remember me talking about these two? Especially this guy right here, Mod Podge, like an HK, earlier in this one, and I'm going to start off with this as well. We put him over here, because right now we want to focus on the next steps. Mod Podge, Plasti Dip, in case I don't drop it off the bar. These two, as I've said before, are excellent sealers. Mod Podge I have worked with ever since I was a kid, through grade school up through high school. I had an art teacher that introduced me to this stuff, and I've used it on so many projects, from drawings to protect it, to even masks when I was a teenager into recent times. As a reminder, if you're going to go with this, a matte finish in a container this size or even larger, and I've had this now for like 3 years, and I'm still, well, it's about right there right now. A tablespoon to about 3 parts of water. I still use my cheap little airbrushes like you had witnessed, and like in the HK, and on this one here when I was using the base coat, and of course the wash. I'm not going to use my Iwata airbrush to put this in because it's a little bit too thick and it's obviously going to be sticky. No. But if you don't want to use an airbrush and you're still using brushes to finish your mask, the great news is, like I said in HK, yes, you could use a brush. It's not going to leave any streaks. The transparency on it dries up extremely clear without any streaks. But if anything, what I would recommend, you've seen those sponges that look like brushes, they're just sponges. I would use those instead. Because the reality of it is, once that dries up, you're not going to reuse that brush anyways. And if you're using cheap brushes, there's a good chance that the bristles that are on that brush are going to come right off and it's going to be stuck to your mask. Hell, you could use paper towel. I've done that when I was a kid. So there you go. 1 part to 3 mixture, this and water. Plasti Dip. If you're still wanting to avoid that glossy look, because this is a glossifier, yes, there is a matte finish available, but for some reason I can't find it around here. Come on, Huber. If you want to avoid that glossy look, it is a UV protector because it says it right there in the bottle. I mean, it's amazing stuff. Like I said, spray it from a distance, light coat, let it dry for about an hour, and then try it once again. In other words, just think about this before you put the hair on. Could you add it later on? Of course, because let's say you went to a Halloween party recently, right? What are you going to do after you're done? Well, if you're younger, chances are you just put it up somewhere, and then later on you're like, oh crap, I forgot to clean out all that sweat. Yeah, because let's face it, you know as well as I do, you wear one of these for a few hours, not to mention your coveralls and a t-shirt, yeah, you worked up a good sweat. So hopefully you remembered to clean the inside of your mask with some talcum, baby powder, or even some, rubbing alcohol to clean out that sweat. Make sure it's nice and dry. Don't put that stuff on the outside of your mask, of course. I mean, what are the chances you got sweat on the outside, but you might have gotten some sweat or some grease on your fingers, but still, you kind of want to take a damp cloth. Don't get it too wet because you don't want to remove any paint. Or get some baby powder or something just to clean it off. You know what I mean? Dust it off. But I'm sure the majority of you out there baby the hell out of your Myers masks anyway, so you know exactly how to take care of it, right? So we got that stuff out of the way. Now we get to what I have been using to hair my rehauls, the masks that I've been working on. Once again, Rowland Kelly, thank you so much. What's in this box? Well, I order from a company from Etsy. I'm sure a lot of you know Etsy right now. There's independent sellers out there that, obviously they're crafts, whatever it may be. In this case, I order from a person that obviously sells wool from sheep, lambs. The industry for companies out there that have a farm of lamb or sheep probably make a killing alone, from hobbyists like us, from Myers masks to people that do make dolls. You know what I'm talking about. They've been around. God, just imagine. This is going to sound sexist, but you see a lot of women out there that obviously paint the dolls, the faces, the dresses, and everything else, and how they hair those. Oh, it's amazing the tools that they use. In fact, there's a lot of indie artists, and hell, Rowland Kelly probably does the same thing. Has specific tools that they use to brush out, the hair and the wool and everything else. What I'm showing you is kind of like the basics of what the average Joe does in his kitchen with just basically his hands. And well, you know what? Let's get to it. So here we go. Here's the wool. It is basically, it's bleached, right? I order amounts where it comes out to about $40. You'd have to talk to the seller. Because obviously from around the world they're gonna have it in different measurements, from grams to whatever, like crepe for an example. You order it by the foot. That's how they measure that out, because it actually does come in rope. This right here, I'm trying to remember the exact measurements, but you will definitely see it there on Etsy. I even asked the seller, how much do you think would be enough for like something about the size, or about 2 pounds or whatever. So it came out to, this is what I stick with, is about $40 worth, and it lasts a long time for me. In other words, I've already went through a bulk of this that probably masked, I'm guessing at this point, about 15 to 18 masks. I probably could have done more with that, but my point is, for $40, this stuff is amazing. It's thick, it's coursey, and I'll tell you what, the very first time I used it, and I was probably, in fact, I know it is from looking at Rowland Kelly's work. It's your last name, Kelly, so no harm there. I'm like, there's something about that really screams H1. The style of the hair, the wave, I don't know, there was just something about it. Now you're probably wondering, well, how do I get it to be at least brown or black or red? Pretty simple, actually. A lot easier than I thought it would. I found this out from somebody that was actually, when I was talking about the dolls, yeah, a woman dyes her hair, her wool, with some stuff, and there's I'm sure other independent artists that do Myers masks knows exactly what this is all about. It's acid dyes, and I get this from an individual, off of Etsy as well. In fact, I ordered this brown. It actually says brown, and then I've ordered this ecru. I'm going to try to do something with this later on, but it's not important for this tutorial. But I ordered it from a company off of Etsy called Yarn Designers Boutique. They're out of California, and I'm here in Ohio. I ordered this, I think, on Friday, and I received it, today's Wednesday, and this came in the mail 2 days ago. I mean, yes, it's up to the shipper, in this case, U.S. Postal Service. In other words, for these 2 containers, including the shipping, it was like $20, okay? Got here in no time flat. So I want to give a shout out to Yarn Designers Boutiques out there in Apple Valley, California, for responding as quick as they did, and they got this out to me right away. They didn't mess around. So yeah, I can definitely see myself going back to them when I want to get more dyes, because if they're going to be that responsive on shipping it out, if I got any questions, I'm more confident I could get in contact with them and, you know, ask them more and more about different shades. In fact, they gave me something else here. It looks like little measurement spoons, which is pretty damn, oh sweet. Yeah, this is going to be helpful. Big time, no doubt about it. Because I usually take, from the past, I take like a tablespoon. And this is going to fit in there perfectly because it's acid. You don't want to breathe this stuff. So by the way, as we all know, the world has more face masks than ever. You probably want to at least wear one of those so you're not breathing this in. Because what I do with this, which you're going to see here shortly, this stuff right here, these spoons would be perfect to dip in there. So there you go. Oh, and one other thing, almost forgot. Distilled vinegar. In fact, you'll see me use all this here. Well, let's see. I'd say right about now is a good time. All right, as you can see here, I started cutting some pieces of wool. I'm gonna probably cut about maybe 20, you know, just depends on the size of the container that you have to work with when it comes to, well, a pot, a big pot, which you'll see in a few moments. So it really does, you know, depend on the size. If you want to get yourself, I would say go to like a thrift store, Goodwill, and start looking for like big pots that you could use if you want to go this method by, of course, rehairing your own Meyer mask or whatever you decide to get into when it comes to rehairing, you know, masks, obviously. But yeah, I would go to a thrift store and look for stuff like this. It will save you a lot of money and aggravation, that's for sure. So anyways, what I do, and I'm just going to show you little samples here because I'm not going to record myself. I think all of you could pretty much figure out how to cut. If not, then I'm sure there's tutorials on YouTube how to cut wool fibers. But anyways, what I do is I want to make sure that, well, as you can see pretty much here, it comes in a rope, okay? That's what it looks like. I just call it a rope. The reason why I call it a rope, well, let's learn from my mistakes. Let's go back in time where I first started doing this. And what I did, dumbass me, just simply cut it. Because I knew I was going to have to cut it. But I would just cut it. And then that's it. I would stick it in this pot of water. And about 45 minutes later, not only was this thing obviously soaking wet, I accomplished the goal. It did dye the color I wanted it at the time, but it was tight as a rope. And it was impossible for me to spread the fibers out like I'm doing right now. So learn from my dumbass mistakes. Don't just stick this into a pot like so and then expect that it's going to work out just fine. Now, I would say about 98% of you were thinking, well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course you're going to want to spread this out. I mean, you would think that if you're going to dye this, it would naturally dye so much easier if you were to spread the material out. Well, folks, this is what happens sometimes when you're an idiot like I. You don't think about that stuff. You get too excited and just move forward. So like I said, learn from my mistakes. Make sure that when you do cut it in pieces, obviously, that you do spread it out. It doesn't have to be dramatically spread out, but just enough. That way, when you set it inside the pot, which I'll show you here in a moment, it'll make so much sense in the aftermath. That, and you're not going to feel like you wasted all that fiber that you just dyed. Trust me, because that's what I was thinking at one point. I'm like, oh my God, but you know what? Sometimes learning from your mistakes is the best teacher. All right, now to the fun stuff. All right, I've got a pot right here, as you can see. What I try to do is go with the method of, I try to have it just, right now it's pretty hot because I've had it on here for a little while. I wanted to get this stuff ready. So I don't think I need to tell you how to do this point. Like I said, I'm sure there's a YouTube video, how to boil water. But right now the water's pretty warm. So I want to go ahead and add myself a cup in general of that distilled vinegar. If you want to save some money, buy some more at the Dollar Tree with your, you know, alcohol. I already got a cup of it, basically about a cup, a coffee cup. I'm going to just go ahead and pour it in here with the water that's already in. And I'm just going to, you know, stir it up a little bit. Oh, by the way, If you want to save yourself a little bit of aggravation, especially if you are living at home with mom and dad, and you do want to try this process, go to the, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. If not, at least you're hearing it for the first time. Go to like a thrift store, you know, a dollar store, whatever, a Dollar Tree, not Dollar Tree, I'm sorry, well, hell, they may have them there too. But go to like a thrift store to look for something like this. I mean, it's going to be really much cheaper than you, instead of buying something brand new or using mom's, if you know what I mean, because she might get irate if she sees what you're doing right here. Even though you're going to be able to wash it later on and not going to have any issues, but let's face it, if mom's happy, we're all happy, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to do, and of course, where did I put it? There you are. I'm going to go ahead and use this, what they sent with me this time. I actually have some of this already, so I don't need to worry about opening a brand new one. But I want to make sure that all of you are very clear that obviously this is an acid, okay? It's an acid powder. If you have any cuts on your hands, I highly recommend that you wear gloves. If you're afraid to breathe this stuff in because it's strong, wear yourself a face mask. And last but not least, don't wear any of your favorite t-shirts, because if you're accident prone, this stuff's going to get on your hands. Naturally, you're going to rub it on your shirt, and your favorite t-shirt's going to be stained. Trust me, it will stain it permanently. So keep that in mind. Gloves, face mask, especially if you don't want to breathe this stuff in. And don't wear any of your favorite t-shirts, especially if you're accident prone. All right. So I'm going to use this. I normally use like a tablespoon, but let's just see. I only use about, now, oh, by the way, before I forget, the less you put in of this brown, the more, I should say, the more you put in, the darker it'll get. The less it'll have more of a reddish tone on the hair. And right now, by using this, I'm going to be guesstimating, because like I said, I've never used this particular, well, this little plastic one that they sent me. So like I said, I'm using this as an experiment to see how much I'm going to need. I'm going to kind of flatten this off. I'm going to assume that it's about as close as about a tablespoon. And I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want it super dark right now. The reason why is it seems like the majority of them, depending on the lighting, of course, of the hair that's on the 2018, seems somewhat of a reddish tone, somewhere between I guess a brown and a reddish tone. So I'm just only going to put one, about a tablespoon. If I want it darker, in the past I would use like a tablespoon and a half. So hopefully I'm right with this little guy right here. Yeah, because I would prefer to use this in my, tablespoons. Let me stir this up a little bit. But before I really get too much further, I want to make sure that I put the lid back on this stuff. Yes, you did see me use my finger, by the way. I'm not worried about it, as I'm so used to getting paint and stuff on my hands. But it will rinse off. Definitely make sure I get this all stirred up. Let it sit for a moment before I add the hair. So let me pause the camera because I know it's so exciting to watch a pot of water. Right now it kind of looks like cheap coffee. The aroma, it's not that strong. But still, I know how some people, maybe your lungs are not the strongest, so don't be ashamed to wear your face mask. Lord knows I still see a lot of people wearing them this day and age, and I don't need to go there. You might be one of them that drives around in your car all by yourself wearing a face mask. All right, now what I'm going to do is, it's still about the same temperature. I'm not going to stick my finger in there now. So I'm going to simply start taking some of this hair that I have already cut and just lay it on top. Actually, all the hair that I had cut, I'm going to put in this pot. It's kind of like lasagna at this point, but I don't think it's going to taste nearly as good. All right. Really what I should have done, which I normally do, and sadly I'm thinking outside the box because of a video. I normally put one in and then push it down with this spoon. I don't like to twist it up. Why? Well, let's think. If you're doing this right now too, you're probably thinking, oh my God, all that hair that I'm putting in here, is it just going to spread out? Is it going to get twisted with the others? No. just do what I'm doing. Just be kind, be gentle with it. Kind of lightly drown it. Let me get some more. Let me show you how I really do. I'm just kind of trying to shut up because I'm just, like I said, thinking outside the box because I'm doing a video and I'm trying to think of others watching. So what I normally do is put one in, push it down. Now the good news is, as this sits in here, all these hairs, all these fibers, it'll eventually just go to the bottom somewhat. It's not going to float. It's going to absorb that water, that acid, that vinegar, basically submerge into the water. So I'm going to continue doing this, and then we'll go from there, right? Of course, because you're so excited right now. I know I am. All right. As you can see, I zoomed in a little bit closer. This last piece of fiber strip that I cut, it's not nearly as dark as the rest of them. And it will get as dark as the rest of them. If not, then something interesting is happening here. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to allow this to come to a boil. After that, I'm going to turn my oven off and let it sit, put the timer on for 45 minutes. During that 45 minutes, I'll come in every once in a while and I'll just gradually stir this up. I won't twist my spoon. It's like I'm pushing it around. Does it make sense? This is where you say, oh, of course, Scott, it makes total sense. Seriously, I just push it around very carefully. I don't want to twist the hair up around this, spoon as if it was spaghetti. You know what I mean? See, I just push it around. Basically, I'm just trying to stir everything, combining the acid, the vinegar, the water, and the hairs. Because, we're doing this for a purpose, of course. So I'm going to let that sit. After that, boil, turn it off 45 minutes, and then we'll go from there. Now, here's something I want to show you that just amazes the hell out of me. I mean, the first time I seen this, I was like, wow, this is better than RIT dye. See how well this acid dye is stuck to the fiber? In other words, look how clear that water is. Now I'm going to spray it off here with my hose, just to put a little pressure on it, just in case there's a little bit. But no, it looks about exactly the same from the time it was sitting on the oven for 45 minutes. Absolutely amazing. So much better than RIT dye. Love this stuff. As you can see here, that fiber wool is pretty much done. It's dyed. Well, of course, it's still got to dry out, but I've got it all spread out here on my bar. Of course, there's a towel in between, so make sure you do that. And if you're, like I said, if you're living at home with mom and dad, ask mom if there's a towel that you can use. The good news is, though, that dye, that acid dye, does exactly what it's supposed to do. Dye the fiber, nothing else. In fact, inside this pot here, as you can see, it's pretty clean. You would witness on the video here when I was draining the water out, and I'm glad that I did show you, because my point is I wanted to show you how clear that water was, because all that dye, like I said, it did what it was supposed to do. Now I get to wait an additional day for all this to dry out, because I'm not going to take a hair dryer to it. I'm just going to let it air dry. That's the best thing in the world to do. Now that it is dry, you could probably see the final results of how, well, it's not all perfectly brown, dark, or whatever, how you want to put it. In fact, here's a really good example. Here's one that's, well, I've seen throughout the years a lot of women where, well, here's her roots, and, well, why did I say women? That's because of my lifetime. That's what I usually see once a woman dyes her hair blonde. Nothing insulting there, but there's that. And of course, if I compare it next to that. Now, for some of you, you're like, oh crap, that is going to look terrible on a mask. Well, if you have a hackle, that's going to save a lot of aggravations. I was hoping that this would happen. I didn't tell you that before, because if it didn't work, then it would have been a complete waste of time and I would have looked like an idiot. But yes, I was hoping this happened, because I use a hackle, well, a DIY hackle that I made. Why? Well, hackles, they're not cheap. They're not the most expensive tools, but If you go on to Etsy, you'll see individuals that make, and they're at least they're made well. You gotta, if you're gonna invest in a hackle, you don't want to buy. Well, I don't know if they exist. If there's $20 ones, I'm sure they do, but you don't want something plastic. You want something that's durable and strong. Or you could do a DIY, which I'll show you here in a moment. But there's another reason why I want to run this wool through a hackle, not just so much to blend the colors, but the wool itself, it's pretty thick. And yeah, I could stand here and spread it apart with my fingers if I want to. That's fine, believe me, I've done that plenty of times in the past. But with a hackle, I'm killing two birds with one stone. Not only am I blending this together, but I'm also thinning it out, which is, if you worked with crepe hair, it almost has the same concept. It really does. It helps thin it out a little bit more to where you could, well, you're much better off attaching something like this to your mask than you are something that's much thicker. It just doesn't look right, trust me. Now we finally get to the point where I'm going to apply some of this fiber wool to this mask, and honestly this is where I always get excited, because that means it's almost done. Yeah, after 6 parts of a tutorial, I bet you're probably thinking it's about damn time. But no, seriously, I am. I always get excited when I'm applying new hair to the mask, because that's when it really takes its shape. They say it's the eye cutouts. I say it's a combination of the eye cutouts you get from an H1 and the hair itself. So don't feel bad the first time you apply hair to a mask. It doesn't quite get it. It takes practice, just like the painting process. You'll get it down. Like I tell others privately, and I know I've said it on this video or maybe in the past, a tutorial in the past. When you were learning how to ride a bicycle, you just didn't hop on that thing, knew exactly what to do. No, you had a parent or a relative or someone teaching you, right? The basics. Plus you had training wheels. Before you knew it, you were riding wheelies. It's the same thing with this. I mean, it's like that with anything that you're learning new. An instrument, I don't care. You're learning to cook a new meal. You're not going to know how to do all this stuff instantly, and you're not going to be a professional at it right away. Hell, I still have got so much to learn when it comes to doing this, and it excites the hell out of me, and I'm starving to learn more. If I get frustrated, I walk away and come back at it again later. That's what I try to tell others is privately, just like I've done in tutorials in the past. So, do yourself a favor. I know I've said this time and time and time again. Have some patience, do your due diligence, don't just depend on my advice, reach out to others. I'm telling you, you can learn a lot from so many more just other than myself. Great videos here. In fact, the last piece of advice I could give you when it comes to not just the hair, Nick Malpagano has DVDs available out there where he goes through even the steps of how to make a mask. So go to his website. Check out his DVDs that he has for sale. Contact him on Facebook or Instagram. The man has wonderful advice for everyone out there. And you could tell that over the years, even recent years, that he's learned so much more from probably teaching himself most likely or talking to others just like I do. So, let me get to the glues real quick, the type of glues that I use. Tacky glue. Available practically anywhere where there's a craft department. Hobby Lobby, the grocery stores, Walmart, whatever, the internet. Tons and tons of tacky glue. It dries up in more or less a transparency anyway, so that's the beauty thing about it. And it's not expensive. Granted, there's different size of bottles, of course, but this right here, 8 ounces, $3.50 at Hobby Lobby. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with rubber cement. How much did I pay for this? $5.50 at Hobby Lobby. It could be cheaper at Walmart. You know how it is. It's always cheaper someplace else or more expensive with their competitors. You could use this instead of tacky glue. People use liquid latex. I've done it before. It works great. The only reason why I don't do it now is because I like to reserve that liquid latex for my painting. Or, of course, if you're making masks with liquid latex, well, there you go. Yeah, there's so many things that you use. A glue gun, melt the glue there, use that. The list could go on and on. Spray adhesives, I'm not a big fan of that when it comes to hairing because it gets really tacky, it gets really sticky. You may get it on places that you don't want it on the mask, and it just seems like it's harder to control when you're applying the hair. Now, if you do your due diligence like you should, you will see a lot of individuals that when they apply glue like the tacky glue or Elmer's glue or whatever, you'll see them put in swirls or maybe they draw lines on the mask. Do what works best for you. I myself, I don't draw lines on. I pretty much do it by eye anyways. It's not like drawing the lines is going to make it more stickier. If you're going to do the swirly thing, make sure, especially if you're new or starting it for the first time, that you put it on, well, put it on lightly. The reason why is you'll find yourself, if you put way too much, what's going to happen? Yeah, we still have gravity around here, and it's just going to make that glue drip and go down the back, possibly the sides of the front of your mask. So yes, find a brush, a cheap brush or whatever, and just kind of put it on there lightly. That's what I recommend. That's something that I haven't seen from other videos. Why they don't do it, I don't know. Maybe it's just something they didn't think about when they were recording the video. Who knows? Now, when it comes to the hair, the wool, the fiber that I'm using, what I normally do for every time I apply it, and I've already cut some because I figured it might be too hard for me to show you on video, but the edge, the tip that I'm going to apply the mask, before that I take some scissors. Not to mention I'm left-handed, so I have to concentrate more on cutting. I try to make myself a flat edge, and then I get some of my tacky glue. And by the way, I usually kind of put it on a piece of cardboard, my tacky glue, as if it was like paint, and then I take my brush and then I put it on both sides like so, about maybe a ½ inch, because I want the tips of it to definitely get attached to the mask. And then of course this brush is going to have plenty of glue on it. If you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, maybe take your thumb or another brush that doesn't have as much glue and kind of use this to put some pressure on it. Don't smear it on there too much. You don't need to. It's not necessary, but put a little bit of pressure, and then of course apply your next strand of hair. I always start from the back and then work my way up to the front of the mask. But I stop about right here. I don't want to, apply it to the very edge until I'm confident that on the sides and the front, I'm really ready to focus on that, because let's face it, it's not just the eyes that makes the Myers mask, it's that damn hair. And I use photo references on my phone to look at certain ones that inspire me on how I kind of want to, make the hair look. I don't try to worry about styling it so much while the glue is wet. No, I want that glue to dry up this, well, itself, of course, and the hair. Then I go and style it later. I want to make that very clear now in case I forget to tell you later. And I will go over that once I'm done, because it's not going to look Meyer-esque, once I applied all the hair to the mask. I'll tell you what, I'll document myself applying, some of the fiber wools to the back of the mask. That way you can kind of see what I was talking about. And then once I'm done, well, you know what, just trust me. Hopefully you're still watching at this point and it'll all make sense. There you go. I do want to point something out real quick. You'll notice that the hair right now on the back of this looks pretty long. do yourself a favor, and I've seen others, or at least I've seen a few other videos where individuals would take some scissors and just cut the hair. Don't do that. Think about it. The hair's not going to grow back, so it's going to constantly have this squared look in the back. Don't do that. If you have to use scissors, wait till it's completely dry. Wait for the glue to dry up, because you might be able to find yourself to remove it with your fingers, which should be better off because it'll have a more natural look. But if you have to use scissors, cut it vertically, not horizontally, and do it very carefully, because it'll look more natural, in this case for a mask. That, it'll just look ridiculous, and then you'll be kicking yourself in the butt later. Well, the hard part is done. Yes, putting all the fiber wool, hair on the Michael Myers, and you're going to find yourself dealing with a lot of hair around you, because yes, it'll be on the floor, all over your shirt, especially after it dries completely, which usually takes a good full day, a good 24 hours. I mean, that's the rule of thumb that I go with. In other words, this time tomorrow, by the time I get off of work, I could actually style this hair more the way I want it, get rid of some, well, this mullet look that's going on. Yeah, there's a lot of hair back there, but I don't mind, because in all reality, most of the time I usually have plenty of hair in the back. I don't want it too short, because when I start removing the hair, well, I think you get the idea. Then I removed way too much hair. The top and the sides, it's turning out fantastic. That's another reason why I love this thick wool. It's so easy to work with, especially when you're applying it. I know I didn't show you everything, but at least wanted to show you something. I started getting the camera out, as you can see here. Usually when I do add the next layer, I will take my fingers, of course, or the scissors, or a tool, another tool that I haven't applied glue, and I pretty much try to smash in carefully the hair that I had already previously put on, and try to pull some of the top of the hair that I had cut, and try to blend that glue in with it a little bit more. Hopefully that makes sense, even with the visual there. Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I figured it was important to show you that. So yeah, basically a very simple thing. It's something that I figured out really from, all thanks to really Trick or Treat Studios, from the removing of the hair. When I'd see how they had applied the stock hair, I just looked at that and like, well, I'll just try that method in reverse. That's pretty much how I apply it. The sides, like the stock hair that I talked about in part one, in fact, I want to bring this up now. If you are going to use the stock hair and you're going to attach the sides and the front again, you definitely want to make sure you get rid of that glue that's on the line. You just want to trim that off. You don't want to try to reattach it with some fresh glue. It won't apply very easily, and you'll get rid of that stocked, seamed look. I mean, come on, the mask is supposed to be 40 years old. It shouldn't look perfect on the sides. Plus, it seems to apply so much easier with a fresh set of hair instead of that old glue. It just, trust me, it just doesn't want to reapply itself properly. Well, that's going to pretty much do it finally for all these tutorials. I will show you what this finally looks like here at the end of the video, a quick shot, and then I'll do a follow-up, a real short video of, like I've done in the past, of what this mask looks like as it's completely done. So if you liked these videos, all 6 of them, and I know this has been the longest one, please give me a thumbs up, because it'll help push my content a little bit more here on YouTube. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, or if you're new to this, please hit that subscribe button along with that notification bell, because it may notify you, hopefully YouTube, wink wink, notify all my viewers and new subscribers and old subscribers the next time I upload another video that's similar to this, or who knows what kind of DIY project I'm going to do down the road that I would be more happy to show all of you. So that being said, I've had a lot of fun. Sorry it took me longer than expected. And yeah, see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.